Okay, I'm gonna just start the presentation, which I hope will only take about 15 minutes or so. Um, I'm assuming you could see my PowerPoint presentation here with the list of topics, and after I go through this, we'll open it up for discussion and everybody can be unmuted and so on. So there's a few things I'd like to cover, and not in too much detail. I'll be able to send you the PDF version of this presentation after the meeting. And so you don't have to take too many notes. But I'm going to talk about these topics and some interesting things here. Let me just move on to the presentation because I guess you can read all this. So the first thing is this new development that was proposed for the office research OR zone that's located between Newtown Bypass and Lower Silver Lake Road, as shown on this map. It's called the University Drive Apartments. And the photo on the left is the solicitor who represents the developer, who is the Kushner Real Estate Group. They're proposing a multi-story residential building, which at first was characterized as being garden apartments, which garden apartments are allowed in the OR district. However, the developer is claiming that this is far from garden apartments, because to have garden apartments, they would have to have several variances. But even so, apartment buildings like this are not allowed in the office research zone in Newtown. Newtown is the only town in the Jointure, which is a combination of Newtown, Wrightstown, and Upper Mayfield, that has an OR zone. And what the lawyer was, Ed Murphy, was proposing is that they would rather not go before the zoning hearing board to obtain variances to the zoning to allow this. I don't know if you know about the zoning hearing board. They're sort of independent of the supervisors, and the supervisors can be a party in every case that goes before the zoning hearing board, but we would have to pay our attorney to attend, and either if we wanted to oppose this at the zoning hearing board. But the developer does not want to go before the zoning hearing board. They rather change the zoning to allow this in the OR district. So, I don't know if this is essentially what happened with Wawa. They claim that Wawa claimed, and I'll get into this later, that this Jointure did not have any use for a combination gas station and convenience store. And so they claimed what our zoning ordinance was unconstitutional, because it didn't allow them to build anywhere. And this seems to be what this group, for this development here, seems to be following on the route to the same playbook as Wawa. So we got to keep an eye on this and see what's going to happen with it. One of the things that this led to was a more discussion of should Newtown be in the Jointure, because, for example, the OR district is the only OR district in the Jointure, and the other two townships don't really care what we do. They'll vote for anything in the OR district. And although the Jointure, we have to have a unanimous decision. So it would ultimately be up to the Board of Supervisors, but there's been some discussion, especially at a recent meeting of the Newtown Planning Commission, that perhaps it's time for Newtown to pull out of this, because the Planning Commission was discussing the comprehensive plan, and that decides, well, what the future is going to be. And, you know, some people would like the future to be 100% in the hands of the township rather than the jointure. So that's just something to keep in mind. The other interesting thing is there's been a recent sewer rate increase. I don't know if you've all have gotten your bills, but you will see an increase of 20%. Now, why is this? Well, Mr. Warren Gormley, who's the manager of the Newtown Sewer Authority, which covers Newtown Township and Newtown Borough, he explained, he was at a recent Board of Supervisors meeting, actually in a January 11th meeting, and he explained that the rate increase would be per quarter, from $68, it would increase to $82 per 10,000 gallons. And any excess over 10,000 gallons is now $12 per 1,000 gallons, where it used to be $10. Mr. Gormley cited that the increase is due to a 16.6 increase that Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority charges the Newtown Sewer Authority to deliver its sewer waste to Philadelphia for treatment. That's owned by the Bucks County Sewer Authority. So whenever they raise their rates, the Newtown Sewer Authority has to make up for that, and the 20% is part of that, mostly for that reason. And I think I was reading that the Bucks County Sewer Authority is not going to be okay with just one rate increase. It seems like there might be at least 2 other increases down the road in what they're planning to do. And I asked Mr. Gormley if we made a mistake in opposing. We opposed the sale of Newtown Sewer to the Bucks County Sewer Authority because Mr. Gormley told us that it would increase our rates significantly. And I asked him if we made a mistake, and he threw out some numbers, and such as $204 per quarter for 10,000 gallons for Lower Makefield, which their sewer system is owned by Aqua PA, which is the private company that wanted to purchase the Bucks County Sewer and Water Authority to begin with. So compared to $204, we have $82. But what's going to happen in the future is something that I'm not too clear on at the moment. Keep an eye on that. Just an interesting aside, at a last meeting, one of the restaurants is having a problem with permits, and there's been some new requirements by the Newtown Sewer Authority that restaurants must have larger grease traps. These grease traps are designed to remove grease and oils and so on from the wastewater that's produced when they wash dishes and so on. And the Sewer Authority has been noting that there's been a lot of overflow when some restaurants were using smaller grease traps, such as 50 gallons. It would overflow into the sewer system, which is not good for the treatment and handling of that wastewater. Anyway, moving on. Oops. This major historic resource has been rediscovered by members of the Newtown Historic Commission, which toured this site that's on land that will be donated by Toll Brothers to the township. It's part of the land that they will purchase from the Philadelphia Archdiocese Church, which owns the property. And this part of the land is not going to be developed with new housing. As you may recall, the Toll Brothers are going to build 45 homes in another part of the site that they will purchase. And so a couple of members of the Joint Historic Commission visited this site and determined that this might be something that the township might be interested in preserving as an historic resource. And they took a lot of photos, and what was going to happen to this property, it was supposed to be demolished as part of a settlement agreement that the township has with Toll Brothers, but that may be put aside. Toll Brothers have agreed that if the township wants, it could prevent that, removal of this property and keep it as a historic site. There are various issues involved with that, not the least of which is what you do with that, how you maintain it, and the cost of all that. So the Joint Historic Commission will to demolish anything like this in the township, and the borough requires that the Joint Historic Commission approve the permit, the demolition permit. So when that has come before the Joint Historic Commission, but they will be deciding on this at some future meeting. They meet once a month. Whoops. The Newtown Creek Bridge. I don't know if any of you have been aware of this. This was something that was first proposed back in 2019, but was put aside because of the COVID and all that. It's a bridge that goes across the creek where an old trolley bridge used to be. There's still some pilings there, and the plan was to, purchase some old bridge. Pennsylvania has a bunch of these old bridges in some warehouse somewhere that can be gotten, maybe even for free, but you have to transport it. So there's a significant amount of money involved in this, and we're not sure how much. But the supervisors have authorized our engineer to participate with the borough to determine, the specifications for this, how much it might cost, and where we might get the money. And then my question is, who pays for this? And at the previous presentation made back in 2019, it was proposed that Newtown should pay the bulk of this because most of the property on which this bridge will sit is Newtown Township property, even though it may benefit the borough more than the township. And it also promised to connect with the Newtown Trail, which, if you could see by this diagram, that ends at the Goodnoe Elementary School. And to go down through Frost Lane is very difficult because of the hilly nature of that area. So I'm not quite sure it's going to connect to any Newtown trails as promised. But anyway, at that time, I did do a survey, and this is just the results that may be of interest to you. I was surprised to see that there was a lot of people who, a slim majority maybe of Newtown Township people were in favor of it. 56% in favor and 30% against, whereas 69% of the borough residents who answered this survey were in favor of it. I could distribute some more of that information, the pros and cons that were discussed, and some of which are interesting. A lot of people just thought it wasn't necessary. It would benefit the borough more than the township. But some people said it much easier and safer for people to walk between the borough and the township roads. It might benefit the businesses in the township on Sycamore Street. So that was something that was mentioned. Speaking of public pedestrian safety, a lot of residents from Newtown Walk community have expressed a concern about a crosswalk at the location on Newtown-Yardley Road. If you see on this map here, the arrow points to where that crosswalk was, and there used to be a school bus stop on the other side, and children had to go across that crosswalk. The speed limit on this portion of the road is currently 35 miles per hour, and they wanted improvements such as installation of a overhead RRFB, which is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. It's not just something that's a flashing light on a pole. It really is like a beacon that flashes when a pedestrian wants to cross. They push a button and this flashes. It's very highly visible. But in addition to that, they wanted to have lower the speed limit to 25 miles per hour. At first, we thought this wasn't possible because it would require PennDOT approval, but it turns out PennDOT approval is not needed for this. This is a township road. And this Wednesday at the Board of Supervisors meeting, we'll be voting on proposing that this speed limit be reduced. And the engineers have already come up with the signage that's necessary. And as soon as we okay this on Wednesday, and when the Public Works Department can do it, this will be implemented. So stay tuned for that. The other improvements that are going to be made is on Sycamore Street. As you might recall, back in 2021, December 2021, I believe, a pedestrian was killed on the crosswalk at Silo Drive and North Sycamore Street. And there's been a number of pedestrian accidents along North Sycamore Street. And so there have been some improvements. For example, the crosswalks were improved for visibility with white piano striping. So they're more visible from further away. The street lights in that area and all along North Sycamore Street, I think, have been switched over to LED. And the township has a grant award of $50,000 to help it do further improvements, including the rectangular rapid flashing beacon and other improvements in that area. And that project is going to cost $183,000. Interestingly, at first we thought it would be difficult to reduce the speed limit to 25 miles per hour because the road from the right, what's that road called? The road coming down from the hill there. What is that road again? It's called anyway, coming into North Sycamore Street from the north, from the north, I believe, is 45 miles per hour. And to change it to 25 miles per hour when you hit North Sycamore Street might be too much. And PennDOT may object to that because the road 532 North, I think it is Washington Crossing Road is a state road, and PennDOT sets the speed limit for that. But surprisingly, PennDOT is in favor of the 25-mile-an-hour change, and the Newtown Board of Supervisors will be voting on that at a future meeting. Meanwhile, I did have this safety timeline, which you can get to and see a lot more details. I remember talking about Wawa, and this is their substantive validity challenge, which means that they believe our ordinance lacks a use for a combination of a gas station and convenience store, which they say is unconstitutional. There's some court cases to kind of support that. And they filed this substantive validity challenge even before they really had a plan to what exactly they were going to build there. And in response to that, the Jointure did what was called a municipal cure, which added this use to the Jointure's JMZO, which is the Joint Municipal Zoning Ordinance, to allow this. And there is a section in each township that allows for it, but frankly, the only one that really worked was the OR zone again. I think you saw it on that other map, and this was called the E30 ordinance. Since then, the Provco, which is the company that actually builds the Wawas, and actually owns the land, Wawa just rents it. They came before us with a plan before the Board of Supervisors, and we rejected that immediately. Provco, filed a case that they're going to take before the zoning hearing board, and there'll be a special meeting of the zoning hearing board next Monday, the 30th. And the township, with the help of outside township solicitor, with the help of outside expert, will argue against the challenge that Provco is raising at the challenge to our rejection of their plan. I don't, if everybody's 100% familiar with that, but the details will be in the presentation that I hand out. The other thing I wanted to touch on is the Lower Dolington Trail. And you might recall, if you live in the area, there was lots of, holes and traffic devices, cones and netting and barrels that were an eyesore and preventing people from using the crossing over. And there was a lot of complaints for many months. And the reason why this was happening is because there were these cables under the ground that had to be removed because the trail requires some underground wastewater management piping and so on and so forth. And so the relocation of the underground cables is still currently going on, I believe. There's still some cables sticking up out of the ground and so on. But there was another problem that some people and in developments up north on Lower Dolington Road were complaining about these semi trucks parked on Lower Dolington Road. They thought these trucks were an eyesore, and that in some cases they obstructed the line of sight when people try to make maybe a left turn out of their development in the woods of Saxony and other developments. And so there were some people who would like to see something done about this. Now, parking is allowed on the Lower Dolington Road north of Frost Lane, but south of Frost Lane, no, there is no parking allowed on one side of the road. Although on the other side by the park, you can park there, but no parking on the other side from on Lower Dolington below Frost Lane. But above it, parking is allowed, and the township police cannot issue any citations for parking there. So one of the things I think might be needed is we're doing this trail and we want it to look good, and I don't particularly like to have these trucks parked alongside the trail, or at least there should be some no parking zones up north of Frost Lane by the trail, so that we keep it looking good. And since there's no parking on part of Lower Dolington down below Frost Lane, I think that could be done in part of Lower Dolington north of Frost Lane. I don't see why not. But anyway, that's something we might discuss. The other thing of interest to me is LED streetlights. The township has approximately 16,000 streetlights, and I can show you here how much it costs us in electricity to light those. And the township hopes to participate in this DVRP, which is the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, which has this program for townships to convert into their lamps, their street lights, to LED lights, which could save money. They'll do a budgetary analysis and a feasibility study. And so we are participating in that. As a township having 16,000 lights, that's very many more lights than other townships that have so far converted to LED street lights. And it'd be interesting to see if we can do that. So I think that's it for now on my presentation. And let me stop